Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gautama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Welcome back, everyone. Nice to see you guys. Welcome. We're going to start our afternoon with meditation like we do each afternoon. And since you guys have been meditating for a while now, I'm not going to do any guidance. I'll just do the chanting, and then we'll just go into the meditation, and you get into the meditation, and then we'll come out with the chanting as well. And then after that, that's where I'm going to start this topic: developing and maintaining relationships, choosing wholesome friends and a life partner. I'll give you some guidance around this to be able to help you, because the Buddha talks about this as one of the most important parts of your journey to enlightenment is cultivating wholesome friends and companions and comrades. But you need to know how to do this without judgment, because you're not interested in judging other people and looking down on them. But at the same time, you do need to make wise choices about who to involve in your life, because this is going to make an impact to how you experience life. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you're welcome to join along in the chanting, and then afterwards you can do the meditation, which is focusing on the breath. And then when your mind is on the breath, if it moves off the breath, you like to cut that off and bring the mind back to the breath. Okay, and then we'll come out with the chanting as well. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti pisu Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhoto Bhagavati. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะกะวาพุทธังมะกะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหากวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหากวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะกะวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวาปานุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, so our topic this afternoon is developing and maintaining relationships, choosing wholesome friends and a life partner. The reason why this is so important for your life is because your goal on the path to enlightenment is to clean up all your unwise decisions in the past, because certain decisions that you've made are producing unwholesome results. You're also cleaning up your unwholesome and unwise decisions in the present moment. As long as you're making unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma, this cause and effect, or action and result. And when you're making wise choices, it's going to produce wholesome results. So if you could snap your fingers right now and instantly practice all the teachings of the Buddha, which you can't, you're still going to experience unwholesome results coming back to you, because you've made unwise decisions in the past, and you're going to need to experience those before you get to enlightenment. You're going to need to experience those. But now you're experiencing them in a different way, that you have this wisdom of the path to enlightenment and the full path to now deal with that situation. So for example, if you lied in the past, and say you lied on a tax form, and the government is now sending you a letter saying, hey, you owe us a bunch of money because 3 years ago you lied on this tax form, and now you owe us $1,000 for that taxes, you owe us $1,000 interest, and you owe us $1,000 penalty. Well, this is your unwholesome karma coming back to you. And in the present moment, you have a choice to make. Do I continue to run and lie and try to hide from this, which you can't, or be honest and you call them up and be polite and respectful, or you write them a letter and then you handle the issue and you extinguish this unwholesome karma, because you can't run and hide from it. So what you're doing is you're looking to extinguish your unwholesome karma, which were unwise decisions in the past, by making wise decisions in the present moment. So in the present moment, you have certain relationships right now. Some of them you've chosen wisely, and these are going to be friends and people that you can associate with for long into the future, having fulfilling, satisfying, and sustaining relationships. But other people, maybe you haven't chosen so wisely, and maybe you have some unwholesome people that are around you, and you're going to need to make some decisions about whether you're going to improve your mind, improve your relationship, or you're going to move on from these relationships. You can't get to enlightenment through just changing your relationships. You can't create this perfect bubble to live in, and now everybody around you is functioning a certain way, and you're functioning a certain way, and now you're enlightened. Because you can't control who you interact with when you walk into 7-Eleven or when you go to a restaurant or something like this. So you're going to need to train your mind. That's what it means to get to enlightenment, is to train your mind, cultivate wisdom, eliminate the pollutions of your mind. And then as you do so, you'll experience the peace, the calmness, the serenity, and the contentedness with joy that is the enlightened mind. You will no longer be angry and sad, frustrated, irritated, annoyed, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these other discontent feelings. But as long as you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing unwise things and into unwholesome things, your decision to be their friend or to be their life partner, that's going to affect you. Who you choose to be your friend or friends, when you're with those people, it's going to affect you either wisely or unwisely. Let's just say you have people who are into unwholesome things, you're going to tend to lean in that direction and do unwholesome things. Whereas if you select wisely and people are into wholesome things, you're going to tend to do wholesome things. Let's say you have a friend long in the past when you were 10 years old and you were in this relationship. You've always been best buddies all the way through your life. And let's just say somewhere along the line, maybe 18, 20 years old, they started selling drugs. And now they're a drug dealer. And you guys are now 25, 30 years old. And say they've never offered you drugs. They know that you don't use drugs, but you guys have just always been friends and you're always in this relationship. And now you're walking down the street together and a rival drug dealer sees your friend and now they start shooting, right? And those bullets don't have names on it. You could easily get killed. Or let's just say you're in a car and they have drugs on them and now the police pull you over for speeding and then they slip their drugs underneath of your chair. And now when the police search the car and it's under your chair, who's going to jail? You are, right? So you can experience these kinds of things if you're holding on to relationships where people are into unwise things or unwholesome things. You can experience these difficulties in your life because this is your choice to be friends with these people. This is your karma. And the Buddha has a simile where he talks about this. You'll see it here when I talk about it, or at least I summarize it, where the Buddha talks about the snake won't bite you, but it'll smear you with feces, right? If there's a snake that goes through feces, which is poop, it might smear you with this feces, but it's not going to bite you. So in this scenario, that friend isn't going to bite you, but they're going to smear you with feces, right? So you would like to cultivate relationships where they're wholesome, where you will tend to do wholesome things, and the people around you are tending to do wholesome things, and now you will create this wonderful life for yourself. Because friends are important, but also life partner. If you think about a life partner, it's kind of like a business. If you had a company and you were hiring a CEO for your company, this is a very important position in your company. Your company is going to live, breathe, and die based on the selection that you make for the CEO. It's either going to be successful or unsuccessful because that person is going to make a whole lot of decisions in your company, and that company is either going to be successful or unsuccessful based on your selection of that CEO. So the same thing is true when you select a life partner. Your choice to select that life partner, they're now going to be making a whole bunch of decisions that are going to affect you. So if you choose unwisely who to involve in your life as a life partner, this is going to affect you, right? Because everything that you choose to do, either wise or unwise, you're going to either experience wholesome or unwholesome results. And while other people can't create karma for you, you've heard me talk about this. We talk about the natural law of karma. It's your choice to be friends or your choice to have a life partner that is producing the karma for you. So I'm going to teach you about some guidance, some things to think about as you're creating relationships, as you're developing the interest in having a life partner. And keep in mind that there are certain relationships that you have now that you're probably going to decide to let go of, and you're going to probably decide to move on from. And only you can figure those out. Which ones are they? Where there's a lot of anger and hostility and bitterness, maybe on your side and on their side, and you're not interested in working this out, and you're not really committed to the relationship, and you might just choose to move on. Then there's a second category of relationships of people that you're more committed to. Maybe your parents, maybe your siblings, maybe your children, maybe your life partner, where, yeah, there's some difficulties in these relationships, but you're committed to doing some work, and you're going to step away perhaps a little bit from the relationship, do that work, and then maybe you'll come back into the relationship and you can do this better. But then there's this third category of relationships, of brand new people that you haven't even met right now. You don't even know who their names are. You never met them. You don't even know what they look like or anything. Brand new people that you're going to meet from this point forward in your life, and you'll only ever be loving and kind, and you'll function through the Eightfold Path and all the teachings of the Buddha, and these relationships will go wonderful for you. And this is how you're going to need to clean up your life in terms of your relationship. So you're going to need to let some go. You're going to need to clean up some others, and then you're going to need to create new relationships of brand new people and practicing these teachings. And this is how you get to the point where you've got all these clean relationships in your life, and you're only practicing these teachings and being loving and kind. But that by itself isn't what's going to produce enlightenment. You still need to be practicing the Eightfold Path, which includes the meditation, the generosity, which includes all those factors of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration that I taught you on Monday. Okay, so I'm going to teach you this, and as we go, just like always, you're welcome to ask questions. Those of you guys online, you can ask questions by putting it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom, and you guys can use the microphones here so that they can hear you online. Okay, so just like with a lot of these that I'm talking about and that we've been discussing, the first step is to acquire wisdom, right? Because I never know who's going to be in these talks from one time or another. So I need to remind you that you need to constantly be cultivating wisdom. And when we talk about cultivating wisdom, it's being able to learn something, investigate it, examine it, to reflect on it, to independently verify it, and then to practice it so that you can independently verify that, yes, this is true. And one of the first wisdoms you need to cultivate on a topic like this is you need to understand the difference between judgment and discernment. Okay, so I'm going to teach you this. What judgment is where you're looking at somebody else's life and you're trying to decide what's wholesome and unwholesome for them. And you might be looking down on them and trying to tell them what they should or shouldn't be doing. You're judging them. You're making a judgment about them and saying, oh, they are bad, they are good, they are wholesome, they are unwholesome, they are stupid, they are ignorant, they are good, they're bad, these kinds of things. You're looking down on them and judging what they're doing in life in one way or another. Okay, that's judgment. And you need to get rid of this. This is coming from the mind's conceit, where you're measuring and comparing your life to their life, and maybe you're putting yourself above them and you're looking down on them and judging them as being below you. Or in some cases with judgment, you put yourself below people and you look up to people with such awe and admiration, you're shaken up and you're uncalm around them, maybe like a boss or a celebrity or a politician. You might put yourself below them and think that you're below them and you're all shaken up when you're around them. But you need to more and more get to the point where you see all beings as equal, that you're not above people and you're not below people. Where this is coming from is the animal world. In our animal existences, we needed conceit. We needed to know when we were in our elephant herd, who's the matriarch of our herd. Because if we didn't know who she was, we wouldn't have survived. We needed to know where's the food, where's the watering holes, where's the migration paths. If we didn't know who the matriarch of our herd was, we wouldn't have learned all those things and we wouldn't have survived. So when we've had all these different animal existences, our mind has been conditioned with this conceit. So when we come into the human realm, we tend to hold on to that. And now in a social situation, you can't be comfortable because you're always trying to figure out who's above you and who's below you. And your ego is rising up and you're judging people and measuring and comparing your life to their life as them being good or them being bad. So this is why I also teach you how to dissolve your ego. In other classes, I'll teach you how to eliminate your ego. And that's coming up in the group learning program in about 2 or 3 weeks. You'll be able to learn that. And I've taught that class many times, so you can really learn it at any point because it's been recorded. But ultimately, you're going to need to learn how to eliminate your ego because that's where the judgment is coming from. Your conceit and your ego, the mind is judging other people. Okay, putting yourself above or below. What discernment is, this is what you need to cultivate. Discernment is wise decision making. You need to cultivate wise decision making. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without discernment. In order to get to enlightenment, you need to eliminate judgment of people, but you need to cultivate discernment. Without discernment and wise decision making, you wouldn't be able to make wiser and wiser decisions about things like your friends and your life partner and things like this to be able to get to enlightenment. So discernment is wise decision making. And that's where the more and more you understand the natural laws of existence, you'll be able to make wise decisions. So you need to cultivate wisdom always about all things, including the path to enlightenment. And this is one of the things that you need to cultivate wisdom around, is what is judgment and what is discernment. Judgment is putting yourself above or below, judging other people, measuring and comparing yourself. The discernment is wise decision making. And then understand that the natural law of karma is always functioning, and it's affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. Remember, it's not mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. There's no being who's overseeing this natural law of karma. It's literally cause and effect, or action and result. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. Any decisions you make, wise or unwise, you are going to experience the results, either wholesome or unwholesome. So when you're making decisions about your friends and your life partner, you would like to be sure that you're making wise decisions based in discernment. You're not interested in judging people. So like that experience where I was talking about maybe a friend from the past who's selling drugs. We're not judging them and saying that they're good or bad, or that they're wrong or right, or anything like that. We're just saying, based on what we know about the natural law of karma in selling substances that cause heedlessness, this would be unwise to do that for yourself. So to be involved with somebody who is doing that, it would be unwise for you to choose to do that because of the cause and effect, the nature of this cause and effect. So whether that person chooses to sell drugs or not, beyond our relationship, that's up to them. But you can just understand that it's unwise to associate with someone who's selling drugs, for example, because of the examples that I gave you. And this is the discernment that you have based on the wisdom of the natural law of karma. You just know that it's unwise to do that. And we're not judging that person. We're not looking down on them. And if that's their choice in life, so be it. May you be well. But you're just choosing as a wise choice that I'm not interested in being involved in this type of relationship. And as I mentioned, the Buddha has this simile called the snake has passed through feces. He talks about it, this snake may not bite you, but it'll smear you. And I gave you the example of that with the person who is potentially selling drugs, that you're just holding on to this relationship. You can use the 5 precepts that you guys have learned as the 5 precepts as a guide to help you select friends and to select a life partner. Other people aren't going to know the 5 precepts necessarily if they haven't studied them with the original words of the Buddha. But if you understand the 5 precepts, what the 5 precepts are is they're exposing you to the natural law of karma and helping you see that if you make decisions to kill, to steal, to have sexual misconduct, to lie, or take intoxicants, it's going to cause unwholesome results in your life. So if you have a friend or if you have a life partner who is choosing to do those things, it's going to cause difficulties in their life, which means if you're connecting your life to their life, you're going to have difficulties. So if your life partner was out there stealing and having sexual misconduct or lying or taking intoxicants, you're going to have to spend money on lawyers. You might get sexually transmitted diseases. You might get in fights and arguments. If they have other partners besides you, you can get murdered in this situation, right? You can get all kinds of issues. So while other people may not know these things as the 5 precepts, they've been taught in various ways, right? Like my grandmother was teaching me, and I'm sure your family was teaching you too, not to steal and not to lie and these kinds of things. So people can learn these things because they're the natural laws of existence, and people can learn them in many different ways through mentors and teachers and things like this. So you can use the 5 precepts as a frame of reference to be able to observe any kind of conduct or any kind of decisions that people are making and decide whether or not it'd be wise for you to associate with this individual or not. And they may not know them as the 5 precepts, but you do. So if you haven't learned these 5 precepts with me yet, using the original words of the Buddha, I've recorded this. It's in books. It's not black and white. There's a large gray area. So you can learn it through our podcast, through our videos, through our book, through other classes and courses that I teach, where I teach the 5 precepts using the original words of the Buddha. This is really helpful for you as a guide to help you eliminate your unwholesome karma through decisions that you make, but also eliminating unwholesome karma that is produced by friends or a life partner that you might choose to have. Wholesome friends equals wise friends, right? You're looking for individuals who are making wise decisions. Again, just like I talked about with children, you're not looking at the person, you're looking at their decisions, right? You separate the decisions that someone makes from the person. You can always love everybody. If you have unconditional love, you just love them as they are. But you would like to look at the decisions that someone's making, because that's going to tell you how their mind's functioning. So if someone's making unwise decisions, it's going to impact you if you choose to be their friend or their life partner. It would be helpful if you have friends or a life partner that understands and is practicing non-clinging and non-attachment. What this looks like for an individual is that they're not constantly hooked to you. If you have someone that's constantly bombarding you with text messages and phone calls, this is attachment. And that doesn't mean you just go away from that person. It means that you might need to do things where you distance yourself and you slowly not reply to their text messages very frequently. It doesn't mean that just because someone's attached, you can't be their friend. That would be unwise. You would like to do things early on in the relationship to cultivate non-craving and non-clinging. So you might see craving and clinging with some of your friends and some of your partners. If you have someone that says, "Oh, you're leaving. I'm going to miss you so much. Oh, why are you leaving? Don't leave, please." You know, these kinds of things. This is attachment, right? Or if like you're at a dinner with somebody and they're like, "Oh, you're leaving. I wanted you to stay longer. Oh, I'm going to feel so bad now that you're leaving." This is attachment, right? Sometimes we think that that's love, but that's not love. When someone's missing you and someone's moaning and groaning like that, that's their attachment. So you can do things to help this person to be able to let go of that attachment. And we talked a little bit about that earlier with the previous discussion. So you can do those kinds of things. So it doesn't mean you just can't be their friend. It means that you would just like to cultivate relationships with non-craving and non-clinging. Because if someone gets attached to you in your relationships, it's only a matter of time before they become discontent. And when they get discontent with their wrong view, they're going to associate their painful feelings to you, and they're going to think you're causing their painful feelings. And they're going to push you aside. That's aversion. Or they're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or they're going to start putting their expectations on you. So as soon as you allow attachment in your relationships, it's like sabotaging the relationship. So if you're interested in long-lasting, fulfilling, and satisfying relationships, you need to be attentive to any kind of cravings or clinging that the people around you might be having. And you'll get more and more used to practicing in such a way that you don't allow people to get attached to you right from the very beginning. So if have a new student, for example, that starts learning with me, and they start sending me text message after text message after text message, or constantly sending me emails, I won't reply for a few days, and I'll just do that. And even people who don't do that, even people who, brand new student who sends me a message, I won't reply for a couple of days just to help them understand through their own mind, just me practicing. I don't need to tell them anything. I'm just not going to reply for 2 or 3 days sometimes, just to be sure that they understand I'm not permanent in their life, and whatever they've got going on in their life, surely I'm here to help them, but I'm not going to be this instantaneous. As soon as someone writes me, I'm going to write back, so that their mind doesn't get used to that from the very beginning. So there's different things like this that you can do. When someone calls you on the phone, when you're first establishing a relationship, even though you're sitting right there and you could easily pick up the phone, sometimes it's wise to not pick up the phone. Help them get used to sometimes they call you and you're not there. And then 2 or 3 or 4 hours later, you call them back. Or maybe the next day or 2 or 3 days later, you call them back. This helps them from the very beginning of the relationship not get attached. So you can function in this way. Sometimes, like in classes like this, sometimes students might at the end, it's like, okay, we're all going to lunch together. And now we all can't leave until everybody's ready and we all go together. And then we go to the restaurant and then we all sit and talk. And then if one person gets up and leave, we all got to leave. Or if nobody wants to leave, then nobody leaves, right? And it's like everybody has to be stuck together. But what you guys start to do when you start learning non-attachment is, no, you don't have to function that way. 2 or 3 people can go to the restaurant and the other 2 can come behind them. And then if we're at the restaurant and 2 or 3 people need to leave and other people would like to stay and talk, that's fine. We can come and go like that. That's just impermanence. But if your mind's holding on and you're forming these relationships, you can create attachment without even realizing it. It can kind of sneak up on you. So you would like to function in a way that you're not allowing people to get attached to you by doing things in impermanent ways. So like, for example, if I'm going to a restaurant with a student and maybe they're on a motorbike and I'm on a motorbike and I say, hey, do you know where the restaurant is? And they're like, yeah, I know where it is. Okay, I'll meet you there. See ya. And I'm gone. right? Rather than like, oh, we got to follow each other. We got to like stay close to each other. We got to check and make sure each other's right together. No, you know where the restaurant is. I know where the restaurant is. Let's just meet there, right? Because now we can independently make our way to the restaurant because we're not attached to each other, right? But of course, if they don't know where the restaurant is and they'd like to follow me, okay, follow me. Let's go. So these are the types of things you can do and just integrate into your life, and you're not causing harm. You're not breaking any social norms kind of thing, because those social norms are oftentimes conditioning. It's oftentimes built with attachment and craving, and you'd like to break free of all of that. You know, all this culture, whether it's American culture, Chinese culture, German culture, culture is riddled with a bunch of conditioning and attachments. And if you just follow the culture that you grew up in, you're going to just keep that conditioning. In the teachings of the Buddha, you're moving beyond that conditioning and that culture and getting to this way of life that you can do anywhere. So like when I went to America 2 years ago, I functioned in the same exact way that I function here. I didn't speak as much Thai when I was there, but I was still wowing people and still smiling and being grateful. And then in that same trip, I went to Egypt, and I did the same thing in Egypt. I was wowing people. Instead of saying hello, I was saying assalamu alaikum, right, as I was wowing to them. But that politeness, that kindness, that friendliness and respect, people understand that. That's a universal language. It's an international language. So the teachings of the Buddha are getting you to this international way of being that is clear of all this conditioning and all this attachment, where oftentimes cultures have things like, I know in America, like usually if you're at a restaurant and food comes, nobody eats until everybody gets their food, right? And now everybody's waiting until everybody gets their food. And now when everybody has their food, okay, now we can eat. This is just attachment. So here in Thailand, when food comes, you just eat it whenever it comes, because sometimes there's only one burner in the kitchen and food's just coming out one by one by one. So if everybody waited for everybody, then people's food would get cold. So oftentimes certain social norms has attachment built into it, and you need to be able to see that and be sure that you're eliminating any kind of craving or clinging or attachment. Not allowing other people to cling to you in these relationships and functioning in a way that doesn't allow people to grab on and cling. Then practicing true love in ensuring that people around you understand what that is. If you're going to have a life partner and they don't understand true love, you guys are going to have lots of issues. Because as I've given you examples before, if your partner goes on a business trip and they call you and they say, "Hey, honey, did you miss me?" And you're like, "No, I didn't miss you." They're like, "Oh, you don't love me?" "No, I love you. I just am not attached to you. Whether you're here, I can enjoy you being here. And when you're away, I can enjoy that too. My contentedness, my joy isn't attached to whether you're here or not." But people misunderstand this missing you. They think that this is because of love, but it's because of attachment. So if you have a life partner or friends that don't understand true love, when you say, "No, I didn't miss you," oftentimes they can have painful feelings because they have a certain craving to hear that from you. And now you find yourself in a difficult situation. So you might have to do a little bit of education here with people to help them to understand that. Each relationship is built on a foundation of politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect. You shouldn't expect these things in your relationship, but just understand that this is what a healthy relationship is built on: politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect. If you expect these things, when people aren't doing it, you'll be upset. You'll be frustrated. The only person who can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in every single situation is an enlightened being. That's the only person. So if you can only be friends with people who are polite, kind, friendly, and respectful all the time, you'd only have friends that are enlightened beings, and you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have friends that are unenlightened. So as long as you don't expect it and have the craving and desire that people will be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, when people aren't polite, kind, friendly, respectful, you can understand. And you can have concern for their misfortune, the compassion. But just know that this is what you would like to build your relationships on. That when a relationship is lacking these, it's oftentimes best to move on, maintaining your loving kindness and compassion. When the Buddha talks about building partnerships with a life partner, he talks about this endearing speech and these other qualities here. He talks about how is a wholesome relationship built and what kinds of things should you be doing in a wholesome relationships. He talks about giving, which is practicing generosity. So even with a life partner or friends, you can be practicing generosity. That's going to help you in your relationships. He talks about endearing speech. Right? So when you're talking, using right speech, being endearing in your speech. He talks about beneficent conduct, right? This is like good, wholesome moral conduct, like right action. And then he talks about equality, that you need to be able to see all beings as equal, right? So some people think that the Buddha taught that men are above and women are below. This isn't actually true. You will never see that anywhere in the teachings of the Buddha. He teaches that all people are equal. So if you're practicing generosity, endearing speech, beneficent conduct, and equality in your relationships, and you're seeing everybody as equal instead of putting yourself above and below your friends and family and your life partner, this is part of what's helping you to develop a healthy relationship built on politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect, and then practicing generosity, endearing speech, beneficent conduct or moral conduct, and equality. It's helpful to eliminate confrontation in your relationships. Sometimes when we're in a relationship and we disagree with the other person, we disagree with their opinions or views, you might feel like you need to convince them to agree with what you're doing. And this is unwise. If your partner has a different view or opinion than you, that's completely fine. I was talking to my wife last night, and we've talked before. She thinks that my son should go to sleep at 8:30 every day, because in her mind, she goes to sleep at like 8 o'clock, and she thinks that everyone should go to sleep around that time. She thinks that's a good time to go to sleep, and she wakes up really early. This is what she's been doing her whole life. So when he stays up really late, she doesn't like that. So her and I were talking, and I was like, hey, he was up to 4 a.m. the other day, and he didn't wake up until 2:45 p.m. I was like, what are your thoughts on that? And she's like, I'm not going to share my thoughts because you have your view and I have my view, and it's just different. And I was like, yep, it's different, right? And it's not that she's right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and she's wrong. It's just a different opinion. And it's okay. That's impermanence. We're all going to have different opinions about these kinds of things. In my view, if he's able to function and he's able to conduct himself and do the things that he needs to do, whatever time he chooses to go to sleep, it's up to him. Now, when it comes to school, we make sure that when he's going to school that he gets to sleep at a certain time. But when he's on a summer holiday like this or the weekends, whatever time he goes to sleep, as long as he's able to take care of his daily task and things that he needs to do, I'm fine with whatever time he goes to sleep. But she tends to, even on the weekends, like him to go to sleep kind of early. So different people are going to have different opinions. You're not always going to agree on things, and that's okay. That's just impermanence. But if you have this craving for everyone to agree with you, when you hear your friend or your life partner, somebody else say something that you disagree with, you might try to advocate for them to agree with you. And also with the ego being in there, you might try to advocate for people to agree with you because you think your way is the right way and everyone else is the wrong way. But always keep in mind that there's more than one way to do things in the world. There's not just one right way and every way else is the wrong way. That's what the ego is going to tell you, that your way is the right way and everything else is the wrong way. But there's multiple right ways to do things in the world. So keep that in mind, that there's going to be difference of opinions and you don't need to have confrontation. When you're ending a relationship, sometimes people feel like there needs to be this confrontation, that you need to go to your friend and you need to tell them, I can't be your friend anymore. And here's all the reasons why. You did this and you did this and you did this and you did this and you don't do this and you don't do this. All you're doing is listing out your cravings, desires, attachments. That's all you're doing. You're saying, I can't love you. I can't be in a relationship with you because I want you to do this and I want you to do this and I want you to do this. And this is my expectation of you here and here and here. And you're not doing all those things. And therefore I can't be your friend. Right? So if you're not interested in being friends with somebody, it's better to just ease away from the relationship. It's almost like you're going into the mountains and going over the horizon into the sunset, and you just gradually move away. Because if you go to someone and you're like, I can't be your friend because of this, and this, they're going to sense that a sudden impermanence, and they're going to grab on tighter, and they're going to try to hold on to you. And this is where you can have a stalker in your life, if you guys know what a stalker is, right? If you have a boyfriend or girlfriend and you're like, hey, I can't be your boyfriend or girlfriend because of all these reasons, they're like, no, don't leave me. They're going to hold on to you. And now they're going to stalk you, right? Online and in person. But if you just gradually move away without them even realizing what you're doing, their mind's going to start going towards somebody else and headed in a different direction, and they'll gradually let go. And your mind can gradually let go too. And this is healthier for you guys. And also, if you don't have this confrontation where you download all the reasons why you can't be their friend because you're judging them, let's just say you gradually move away from them. And now like 2, 3, 5 years from now, you've done some work on your mind. They've done some work on their mind. Maybe you guys cross paths. You can be friends. You see this friend, you have this friend at one time, it wasn't working out, and you guys drifted away, and now you cross paths again. It's like, hey, Barbara, what you been up to? How you doing? And it's like, oh, now she's being maybe more friendly, more polite. She's learned some things. You've learned some things. You're not as attached anymore. You can have a great relationship, perhaps. Whereas if you downloaded all these reasons why you can't be their friend, when you see them at the mall, they're going to be cutting you some eyes, right? They're going to be looking at you pretty sharp, and there's like this hostility between you. So you don't need this confrontation to end a relationship. You can just gradually move on, just gradually move away. Now, if it's a significant relationship, if it's like a husband or a wife and there's property involved and kids involved and things like this, you're going to need to have some talks, and you're going to need to sign some documents and sell some things. That's a bit different. But when you have these relationships where it's a friend, or maybe it's just a boyfriend, girlfriend and things like this, and you aren't living together, you can just gradually move away. But if you have significant relationships, you're going to have to go talk to that person. But still, you're not interested in downloading all the reasons why you can't be with them. That would be unwise, because sometimes you leave out of a relationship thinking that I need to teach them a lesson. I need to tell them all the reasons of all the things that are wrong with them so that they can fix these things. And this is just unwise. This is your judgment. This is your cravings. You're not responsible for other people's growth and other people's development. They're responsible for those things. When you put yourself in the position of telling them what they should or shouldn't be doing, this is your ego, and this is your cravings, desires, attachments. And this person may or may not be open to your opinions and views. Now, if they ask you certain questions, you might decide to share with them in that situation, but even in those situations, oftentimes their ego can't take it. So it's better oftentimes to let them figure those things out. They need to get on to some kind of learning and some type of growth, some type of inner improvement, and you're not going to be able to help them do that in the 5-minute conversation or 20-minute conversation. They're going to need to figure this out, that they need help. Just like you're choosing to come to the temple and learn and do this work, they're going to need to do those kinds of things too for themselves. So you can avoid a lot of this confrontation by just choosing not to do it and just gradually move away from these relationships. And then you leave yourself open to potentially having a relationship in the future. Whereas if you create this conflict and this confrontation, you're not going to be able to do that. Okay? Just like I was talking about with teaching kids, it's important not to assume that you know the full story, even with your friends, even with your life partner. If something happens, like there were times where I would come home with my wife, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and there would be a strange pair of shoes at the front of the room, like entering into the door in the foyer, there'd be a strange pair of shoes, and it's a men's shoes. And I would see the shoes and I would hear some laughing and giggling in the room. And I was like, whoa, what's going on in there? Because I forgot. She does massages at home. She had a client in her massage room, and that's what that was. And if I started allowing my mind to cling to all these perceptions, I might think that, hey, there's some guy in there that she's cheating on me with. So don't ever assume that you know the full story. So if you haven't seen it or you haven't heard it, you don't know whether it's actually happened or not. You're not interested in clinging to any perception. It's helpful to be a good problem solver, particularly as you're developing a life partnership, that you guys will face challenges when you're in a life partnership. And as you face challenges, if you guys are good at problem solving together, this will help you guys. You're going to need those skills to problem solve. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be a very good problem solver because you've solved the biggest problem in your entire life, which is your discontent mind. And if you can eliminate your discontentedness, getting to enlightenment, you've solved the biggest problem you've ever encountered in your entire life. And there's been a whole lot of smaller smaller problems that you've uncovered and you've solved on your way there. So one of the things that you would like to do in your relationships is cultivate good problem solving skills for yourself, but then also with other people, where you can come together with your life partner, you can talk about issues, and you can solve problems together. Take your time in selecting friends and a life partner. Sometimes if there's a craving in there to hurry up and get a life partner, you might just select the first one that's available, right? You just really want to get this person. You really want to get married. Maybe your parents are putting pressure on you. Maybe you want to hurry up and have kids, and you might make an unwise decision about your friends or about your life partner. So take your time. There's no rush. You would rather make quality decisions. It's better to have one or two really solid friends than have 50 or 100 people who aren't really committed to you and what it is that you're doing in life. So take your time and cultivate wholesome relationships. Be patient with it, and don't just hurry to make these relationships. I see some of you guys writing this down. I'm going to need to flip the slide here, but just know that you can get these on the website. You can download it from the area of free books. I've got the PDF available. As you're interacting with your friends and a potential life partner, look at how they treat other people. This is really important because maybe you're only on your first, second, or third date with this person, for example, or maybe your first, second, or third time being with this friend. And you'd like to observe how they treat taxi drivers, how they treat food servers, how they treat their mother and father and brothers and sisters. How do they talk about their ex-partner? Because you're going to be that person potentially soon. And if they're constantly disgruntled and they're talking about how horrible their mom and dad are, or their brothers and sisters, or their life partners in the past, their boyfriends and girlfriends, if they're treating waiters and waitresses and taxi drivers disrespectfully and impolitely, that's an indication to you that that's the way that they treat people. And it's only a matter of time before they treat you that way. Because when you first start getting to know somebody, you're in that honeymoon phase where everyone's on their best behavior. So it's only a matter of a couple of months before you're not in the honeymoon phase anymore, and they're going to be treating you the same way that they're treating other people. So you can be observant of how they're treating other people, because that's how they're going to treat you before too long. So pay attention to those kinds of things. Keep in mind that your goal isn't to please others through your relationships. Sometimes our families put pressure on us about the type of people that we should associate with, and you might think that you need to make decisions in order to please your parents or please your friends. If I would have dated the people that my family wanted me to date, I probably wouldn't have dated anybody, because every girl that I brought home, my sister, my mom instantly hated her. Right? And I couldn't have dated anybody if I was only going to date the type of person that they wanted me to date. So if you try to please others and try to meet others' expectations, okay, you might have fulfilled their expectations, but now they're going to keep putting more and more expectations on top of you. Those people are living their life. My sister has her life. My mom has her life. They got to pick their partners, and you get to pick your life and the way that you would like to structure your life. So don't think that your responsibility is to please others through the types of friends and life partner that you select. You need to make decisions that are wise for you. And the choices that are wise for you may not be wise for other people. When I selected the wife that I'm with now, that we've been together 17 years and we'll be together for the rest of our life, my sister didn't like her right away. And now my wife's in America and they're meeting up for dinner. They're spending time together, having a great time. They're going to have all this fun together. But initially, if I would have listened to my sister didn't want me to be with her at all. But now she's got a chance to meet her. She knows her. She's like, wow, she's a nice person. So don't try to please others. You got to figure out for yourself, what's the wise decision? Create the life that you want to live. Don't create the life that other people want you to live. Create the life that you are interested in living. And then you'll be pleased with those choices. And where you make an unwise choice and you make an unwise decision, then make a different decision. But if you're making decisions based on other people's criteria, you never get a chance to cultivate the wisdom of how to make decisions in your own life. So make decisions. And yeah, you're going to make unwise decisions. I had a previous wife, as I think I've shared with you guys. I had a previous wife, and I'm glad I had that relationship because I learned a lot in that relationship. But I made an unwise decision, and she probably made an unwise decision too to be with me, right? And we decided to go separate ways, and she found a partner that's better in line with what she's interested in, and I found one that was better in line with my interest. But it was that process of going through that helped me to learn what I was really interested in a partner. Because that first relationship with that first Thai lady, I hadn't even been to Thailand at that point. And when we got further into our relationship, I was interested in living here long term, and she wasn't. And this was one of the big things that we decided that we needed to end our relationship, because she wanted to live in America the rest of her life and I was interested to live here. So we had to separate. But I hadn't even been to Thailand when I met her. So when we met, hey, things looked decent, like we would have a good relationship. But then after we came to Thailand and we figured this out, so on the second date with my current wife, I asked her, where are you planning to live for the rest of your life? Is it America? She said, oh no, I'm only going to be here for 10 years maximum. I'm going to live in Thailand long term. Perfect, right? Green light, let's go forward, right? So you learn things about yourself and you learn things which you're interested in a partner, and now you use that to make wiser decisions. So you're going to make mistakes along the way, but use that as an opportunity to cultivate wisdom. If you understand that your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom in life, everything you do is to cultivate wisdom. So that means there's no such thing as failure. Sometimes we look at it as success and failure, but there's no such thing as failure if your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom. Because even when you're making mistakes, you're still cultivating wisdom. So when I was making decisions about my partners in the past, yeah, I made unwise decisions, but they weren't failures. Those relationships weren't failures because I was learning. I was cultivating wisdom. So I didn't fail in those relationships. I was actually cultivating wisdom about how to make the next wisest decision. So each one of these relationships led to more and more wisdom until ultimately I made a wise decision that, yeah, this is the type of partner I would like to live with. So if you set your goal, as my goal is to always cultivate wisdom, no matter what you do in business or with friends or family, you can always cultivate wisdom and you can always grow, and you're never failing because you're always cultivating wisdom. Leave space for growth, because whatever life partner or friends that you end up having, they're going to change. Things are going to change. I think I shared a little bit with you guys that when me and my wife first got together, she cooked, she cleaned, she washed laundry, she did all these other things. We had sex lots of times, 3 times a day, things like this. I was really rich. I was really wealthy. I had lots of money. I could spend this money to go on all these elaborate vacations, but all that changed. All that changed as we went forward in life. And if we were holding on to those things, wanting those to be permanent, we thought that was the love, when things started changing, we would have broke up and we would have ended our relationship. So don't look at those things as the love, but instead the love is this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings. Those things are all going to change. The appearance is going to change, your interest, your hobbies, the things that you do change. So understand that this person who you're about to form a relationship with, either friends or life partner, they're going to change. One time I had a student when I was teaching Thai massage. It was one of my very first students. I ended up teaching them. And then about 7 years later, we came in contact with each other. And she says, I've heard that you have changed. And, she was talking about it like it was like a really bad, detrimental thing. Well, of course I've changed. It's 7 years later. You've changed too. But people oftentimes are looking for this permanence in your relationships, and there isn't this permanence. We're all going to change. So when you meet a friend, when you meet a partner, just understand they're going to change. They're not going to be the same person 1 week to the next or 1 year to the next. They're going to be constantly changing and evolving and becoming a different person. And that's good, because you would like your partner to grow. Because when you meet them, they're not going to be perfect. And neither are you. You're not going to be perfect and they're not going to be perfect. So if you met a partner who's imperfect and they never changed, you're stuck. You would like to meet a partner that is interested in change and that chooses to change and is constantly working on change. You would like your partner to change. This is important because they're imperfect when you meet them, and so are you. So you would like to be changing and you would like them to be changing too. So that was all about friends and life partners, but now I'm going to talk specifically about life partners. Just a couple of things here, okay? So in terms of a life partner, it's helpful to understand that a perfect partner doesn't exist. Sometimes we think that there's like this soulmate out there for us, or Prince Charming or Princess Charming. That person doesn't exist. They only exist in your mind. So if you've got all these criteria, this laundry list of things, and you're looking for that Princess Charming or Prince Charming, He doesn't exist. I'm sorry, right? It's only in your own mind that that person exists. And even if you did find that person, he's going to change. She's going to change. Impermanence, right? The universal truth of impermanence. So you're not looking for the perfect partner. What you're looking for is somebody that understands that they are the source of all their own challenges and difficulties, and they're willing to grow and improve and develop and become a better person. That they're interested in inner growth, they're interested in inner development. That's what you're looking for. Of course, you're probably looking for a certain amount of physical attraction. You might be looking for certain financial stability and wise decision making. You're looking for those kinds of things too. But what you would like to really look for is, does this person understand that they are responsible for their own life, they're responsible for their own feelings and emotions, and they're not going to be blaming me for the things that they experience, and they're interested in inner growth and inner development. If you can find someone like that, then you guys can rock and roll, right? You can do some things together. And they might not understand that right from the beginning, from the first date. You might have to talk to them. You might have to ask them questions like, what is love to you? How would you describe love? When you get angry, what causes that? And they might be like, oh, I get angry when somebody does this and somebody does that and something does this. Oh, really? And you might have to kind of talk to them a little bit and help them be able to see a little bit of the teachings. So just because someone doesn't know that they're causing their own anger and sadness and frustration off the bat doesn't mean you discount this person from the beginning. You might have to help them a little bit. That's what it means to be a life partner, is that you're encouraging, you're supporting, you're motivating, you're helping each other grow in life. So the likelihood of you finding someone who understands the Four Noble Truths and that craving, desire, attachment is the cause of their discontentedness, it's very rare, unless you hang out in places like this at the temple. You might find a partner at the temple, perhaps. That's not why I would suggest you come here, but you might find a partner in these retreats and in these courses and things like this. Or you might already have a partner and you are doing this together. So wonderful if that happens, but you might end up finding someone outside, and you don't have to discount that that would be an unwise choice. You just might need to help that person learn a little bit, and they'll appreciate you for that. Right? So the perfect partner doesn't exist, but if they're willing to do inner growth and inner development, that's what you're looking for. It's helpful to develop important skills, problem-solving skills together, where you guys have discussions and there's disagreements. When I was first starting to practice these teachings really closely, sometimes my wife would say certain things and I would intentionally disagree with her just to get her used to me disagreeing with her sometimes. And then seeing how we worked it out together. Was she advocating and fighting to death because I disagreed with her, or was she completely comfortable with me disagreeing with her? So getting comfortable with disagreement, developing skills of problem solving, and disagreeing while being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Understand that official marriage isn't required for you guys to have a long-lasting, sustaining relationship. All a marriage is essentially is you're going to the government and you're reporting to them who you're choosing to stay with and who you're choosing to have a relationship with. You're just signing some documents. You're entering into a contract with the government and saying, this is the person that I'm going to now stay with. You can do that. And in some societies, it's actually advantageous to do that in terms of taxes and benefits if somebody should die, and child benefits and things like this. It's kind of advantageous, but don't feel like that's required. Sometimes we have this idea of this perfect wedding and we're really craving and desiring that. When I got married the first time, as soon as I got married, I felt all this pressure from this marriage. And then when I got divorced, I felt free. And then when I got married to my second wife, who we're now with long-term and I'm going to be together for the rest of my life, same thing. When we got married, we were dating and we were living together for 3 years. Everything was wonderful. Of course, we had arguments and stuff like this because we were not practicing these teachings very closely, but nonetheless, it felt quite freeing because at any point, either one of us could have picked up and walked out the door. And we knew that. So we were on our best behavior, treating each other very well. But when we got married, I became complacent. And I felt this pressure on me, like, oh my goodness, like now I'm married. So we got to a point where we did separate. a couple of times. And ultimately, once we got back together, we ended up signing documents to officially become divorced. So we live together. We've been together for 17 years, but we're not officially married anymore. And this has been really helpful for our relationship because I don't feel the pressure. She doesn't feel the pressure. She knows she can pick up and walk out at any point. I know I can pick up and walk out. We won't because we really enjoy spending time with each other, but we're not officially married. And here in Thailand, about 80% of the couples are not officially married. Only about 20% are officially married. So this is where when you're in a relationship together, you're there because you enjoy being together, not because the government has got this pressure or this document. Because once you put that document in place, I was like, yeah, she's not getting out of here without a fight, right? It's kind of become complacent. Like if you do something unwise, it's like, yeah, you got some time to fix it before she gets to leave. Where when you're not married, like, hey, she can leave at any point. It took me out of complacency. So whether that works for you or not, you'll have to decide. It's not going to be an all or nothing. It doesn't work for everybody. In some societies, it's actually advantageous to be officially married. But just understand, you don't have to be officially married for two people to maintain a healthy relationship because you're just informing the government. That's all you're doing, essentially. And sometimes you get benefits for doing so. So you'll have to decide whether it's wise for you to do that or not. In some cases, it may be. In some cases, it may not be. And then understand that there's no such thing as meeting and getting married and then living happily ever after. We read this growing up as a child, all these fairy tales about living happily ever after, and we think that that's the way life is. It's not actually meet, get married, and live happily ever after. What's really happening is you meet each other, you learn each other, you work on developing skills and abilities to solve challenges with each other. You learn to communicate. You learn to have discussions. You learn to be friends. You learn not to want anything from each other. You learn to be interested in seeing your partner be well and succeed. You support, encourage, and motivate each other to accomplish whatever they'd like to accomplish without putting any expectations or controlling conduct into the relationship. That's what you're really doing. So there's all this work that you need to do after you get married. It's not live happily ever after. So me and my wife, we've been together for 17 years, but we've been happily together for about 6. It took us some time to figure it out, right? It took us a good 11 years to figure it out. And there was a lot of difficulties along the way. So you're probably going to experience these same kind of challenges, that you're going to meet with challenges and difficulties. It's not live happily ever after. It's all these things that you're going to need to develop. As you're learning each other, and as I mentioned to you guys, that's what Thai people refer to it. It's not the dating, it's actually learning each other. Like you come together, you meet each other, you spend time with each other, and you're learning each other. In this process of learning each other, you would like to learn how to spend time doing different activities. Oftentimes when we're in the dating process or the learning process, you might make a date with each other and they come and pick you up. You go to the movies, you go to dinner, you come home, and then you go your separate ways. And then there's a date and you go to the park, you go do this and you go do that, and then you go your separate ways. And on these dates, you're just always together. So then when you actually move in together or you get married, it feels really odd when they're in the other room and you're somewhere else doing something else, or they stay at home and you go out with your friends. It feels kind of strange. So what I encourage you to do is in that learning process, in that dating process, make part of that where, yes, you go out to the movies, you go to dinner, you do these kinds of things, but also you can do different things. Like maybe you go somewhere to like a party and they're going one way and you're going another way. Or maybe you come home and you're relaxing and you're in one room reading a book and they're somewhere else watching TV or something like this. And you get used to doing this as part of your date or part of the learning process so you can see what that feels like. So ultimately, if you move to the next phase where you are living together or you are married or something like this, that you're used to doing these kinds of things separately, that you're spending time together, but you're separately spending time together. This can be really helpful. As I mentioned, change will occur, change in appearance of your life partner, change in the relationships, change in the types of things that you do, your hobbies, your activities, your appearance, your financial situation, all these things are going to change. So just know that that's going to happen. So don't cling to whatever you see with this person when you first meet them, their appearance, their financial stability, their hobbies or activities, the way that they function. They're going to drastically change as they age and as you guys go through life together. And that's a really good thing. you would like to embrace that change and know that that's important. Okay, so that's everything, I think. Yep. Okay. Any questions on any of this? It's a good starter, right? Questions? Yep.
Thank you. So, David, you said that the ultimate goal of life is to cultivate wisdom. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we can't fail. But I thought that the ultimate goal of life is enlightenment, and we can fail in this life.
You can't get to enlightenment without wisdom. So if your ultimate goal is to get to enlightenment, which, yeah, that's a wise goal to have, you're going to need wisdom in order to get there. So if you set your ultimate goal and your objective of what you're looking to do in the world is cultivate wisdom, that is what will lead to enlightenment. You can't ever fail because you're always cultivating wisdom. If you make a mistake, if you make unwise decisions and it produces unwholesome results, you're learning from that. And as long as you learn from it, you're not failing. Because sometimes when we have a difficult situation and some unfortunate circumstances happening, sometimes we run away from that. And when we do, we lose the opportunity to cultivate wisdom. And that's just ensuring that that situation is going to reoccur over and over and over again. So rather than running away, if you turn around and walk towards it, now you can cultivate wisdom and you can ensure that that thing doesn't happen again because you have more wisdom to overcome it in the future. The words of the Buddha on this is he says, don't shrink back from the struggle. So when you're struggling in life, it's just because you don't have wisdom about that particular thing. That's the only reason why you're struggling, is because you're lacking wisdom about that particular thing. So when you're feeling stress and anxiety, or there's some major decision that you're contemplating and you're really struggling with this, it's just because you don't have wisdom. And that's what you would like to do, is cultivate wisdom rather than running away from that thing. Turn around and walk towards it, cultivate all the wisdom that you like. And even if you make some unwise decisions in the process and you experience some unwholesome results, because you will experience that, that's okay. Just learn from it. Look at it. Even if 99% of the decision was wise and there's 99% of it's wholesome, but there's 1% that is producing these unwholesome results, figure out that 1%. And in a situation when it's involving other people, let's just say there involves other people, and let's just say there is a way for you to figure out that you're 99% right in the situation and you're only 1% wrong, so to speak, or making unwise decisions. Don't focus on their 99% of being unwise. Focus on your 1%. That's where you grow. Whether it's a job, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, or friend or family, wherever your growth needs to be, cultivate that 1% of wisdom, because that's going to help you in the next situation. And then you can't ever fail. You will be making unwise decisions and experiencing unwholesome results to a certain degree, but each time use it as an opportunity to learn and grow and cultivate wisdom.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
When you were talking about relationships with friends, making wise decisions about who you hang out with, you were using the drug dealer example of like a really bad friend. But there's so much like subtlety in relationships and people that, you know, it's like you have a friend, but maybe you don't know them 100%. Of course, you're not going to. And it's like that discernment when you're hanging out with people. Like somebody might have a beer with dinner, or they're not drunks, they're not intoxicated. I'm trying to find that line between like the subtleties in other people in relationships and where you kind of make a hard line.
Yeah. What you'd like to look at is the decisions that they're making. If they're starting to impact you, this is where you would like to really look at that close. So if somebody's drinking a beer or two here and there, but they're friendly, they're polite, they're respectful, their decisions aren't affecting you, then no reason to just end the relationship because they drink a beer or two or a glass of wine at dinner, right? But if they're getting drunk and intoxicated, they're lying to you, they're borrowing your car and crashing it, and now you got to pay money for it. These are the kinds of things that you would like to look at, and it would be unwise to go forward. So look at the impact that it's having in your situation and into your life.
My next question was, when you were talking about being in a new relationship, how to create space and detachment so people don't immediately become attached to you. So you're cultivating like that non-attachment within the relationship. But I mean, just looking back through my life, it's like when you meet somebody for the first, when you're first starting to get to know somebody, if maybe you think they're going to be a life partner or a longtime friend, you're like really excited and enjoying being with them. And you're not thinking about creating space and detachment. How do you actually like cultivate a relationship and cultivate distance at the same time?
Yeah. So that excitement that you're talking about, that's the discontentedness based on the craving, desire, attachment. That's that conditioned, pleasant feeling. And you'd like to pay a lot of attention to that and cut that off because that's your craving that's producing that conditional, pleasant feeling. So you would like to temper that and restrain your mind. And where you're seeing that, where maybe you're supposed to get together in 2 or 3 days and you're so excited, you might like to delay that. So it gives your mind time to let go of the craving as well. So you need to be really attentive to your own craving, desire, attachment in these relationships, and then also other people being attached as well and getting into relationships. So you just need to be really attentive, and you need to see craving, desire, attachment as like one of the worst things ever. Because as soon as your mind gets attached or they get attached, you guys are going to get discontent, and it's going to sabotage your relationship. It's going to crush it. And you're not interested in that occurring. You're looking for these satisfying, fulfilling, and sustaining relationships. And as long as there's attachment in them, you're not going to be able to get to that. So you would like to just be really attentive. And this is where you can be patient and take your time and cultivate one relationship at a time and just gradually build and build and build and build. And one of the things that you'll see here in Thailand is like when you're developing friendships or a potential life partner, they will do this outside, where like in Western culture, when we meet somebody, one of the first things we'll do is invite them home, and we'll come to our home. And this oftentimes you run into a lot of problems because 2 or 3 dates in, you don't really know this person very well, and they know where you live, right? So there's people that I know here in Thailand that I've been friends with them for 7, 8 years. I've never been to their house. There's no reason for me to go to their house. They've never invited me to the house, but we have a great relationship, but there's just no reason for me to go to their house. So Thai people, it's not that they're untrusting or they're worried or anything like that, but there's just no reason. So you spend time with people outside. And if you're interested in a sexual relationship, here in Thailand, they have plenty of hotels, and it's pretty common for people to do that, is to go to a hotel and have a sexual relationship there, particularly if it's early on, because once the sex starts happening, that's when the attachments really come in really strong. And if you don't know this person very well and you're having sex pretty early in the relationship and they start getting attached and clinging, and now you try to end the relationship, they know where you live. And changing where you live is really hard, particularly if you enjoy where you live. So you would like to do these kinds of things outside. And that way, if you need to make changes in your relationships, it's really easy for you that people aren't coming around and stalking you and finding out where you live. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The learning process is really important. Yep.
Building on top of a bit of that was spoken about, not showing attachment, creating a bit of distance when first meeting somebody. I mean, I've also heard like friends, like females say, I don't even know if this guy likes me or not, because they might be used to a certain attachment styled action, right? Of just being like, wait, why is he not getting back to me right away? Maybe he doesn't even like me. No, I want someone who actually wants to be with me or is attracted to me, that kind of thing. So I've had this conversation with female friends, right? And for me, I can see myself expressing interest, but not, being super attached and not messaging all the time. Like I have my own stuff going on. But a part of me is like, okay, on one hand, like you don't want to succumb to the like attachment game. But on the other hand, it's like initially when you are doing that dance, I mean, isn't it better to kind of show more interest to make sure that that's clear in the language that maybe she understands?
You can show interest without having attachment. If this person's mind is with you because you reply to them within 5 minutes in their text messages, at some point in the future, when you stop doing that, their mind's going to be discontent and they're going to end the relationship anyway. So you would like to establish the relationship early on through non-attachment, that you're not going to just reply back to a text message every 5 minutes when they reply to you. But you can do other things to show your care, your commitment, your loyalty, your love. There's lots of ways to do that through gifts and generosity, through endearing speech, like we talked about, through being very wholesome when you're with them, through treating them very well and treating them with equality, showing them that you're interested in being with them. But attachment is just going to damage the relationships. I'll give you a little example. Like, say you go out on a really great date with someone for the first time or the second time. Sometimes people like to schedule the next date while you're on that date, right? Because they want to have this thing like, oh yeah, this was a good date, the date we were on, so let's schedule our next date like right now. And this allows the mind to hold on. You're not interested in doing that. You would like to step away from the first date and the second date and the third date and all your others with, okay, we just stepped away from this and we don't know when we're going to contact each other again. And that's okay. Where the mind wanting to hold on, sometimes the mind wants to schedule the next date before we end this date so that we know we got something locked in. And this just keeps the mind holding on and attached. But there's ways through gifts and through spending quality time together and these kinds of things, spending time with their family, going to see their family, taking good care of their mom. And you're not doing those kinds of things early on, but you can do these kinds of things to show that you're really interested. And you can even use your words too and say, hey, I really like how you're so thoughtful and I really enjoy our great conversations together. You know, these are some things that I would like to do in the future with you too. You can communicate this through your speech and through your actions and make sure that it's certain that they can see that you clearly enjoy spending time with them, but you don't allow the attachment where you're constantly bombarded with messages and you're constantly replying back, you're scheduling the next date before you're done with this date and these kinds of things like that, that just allows the mind to hold on. So you can communicate affection and love and that you're enjoying spending time together through your speech and your actions without having attachment.
And then my second question has to do with, you had mentioned that a lot of the things, they're impermanent, to not, kind of get too into them, right? Like looks change, careers change, lifestyles change, all that stuff changes. So don't become attached to it, right? But are you necessarily saying to not even enjoy some of these impermanent things? Because like enjoy it while it lasts kind of thing without attachment. Is that almost kind of where we're going?
Yeah, excitement and attachment. Attachment leads to excitement, right? Enjoyment doesn't have attachment. You can enjoy something. Like I'm enjoying talking to you. But when this conversation's over, it's over. We go our separate ways. We're not attached to it. We're not longing, yearning for it to continue. So you can enjoy something without a conditioned, pleasant feeling. So yeah, if you enjoy the fact that your partner has a certain amount of money or has a certain appearance, okay, enjoy it, but just understand that this is going to change and you shouldn't define your relationship through these things and define this person through these things because it's all going to change.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Anytime you cling to anything, you're just setting yourself up because that's going to change. Right now, you have a lot of craving and clinging that's currently in your mind that you got to let go of. But then you learn really well about how not to pick up new cravings. You will pick up some new cravings between now and enlightenment, but on your way to enlightenment, as you're shedding more and more craving and clinging, you'll get really good at identifying these things and not picking up new ones. So you're going to need to get better and better at that. All right, let me see if we have anything online. People online have been pretty quiet in this course. Let's see. Do we have anybody has questions? I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so today's the end of our class for today, but tomorrow we're going to pick it up in the morning at 9 a.m. And we're going to start with meditation, and then I'm going to teach you the path to enlightenment, practicing the path in the workplace, because these teachings, if you weren't practicing them in the workplace, you actually wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. But of course, other people around you are most likely not going to be practicing. So I'm going to teach you how to practice these teachings in the workplace, even though other people aren't practicing them. Then I'm going to teach you the art of the friendly no, how to say no without saying no. It'll take me all of about 5 or 10 minutes of how to teach you that. That's going to help you preserve your relationships and create more harmonious relationships, because one of the things that the unenlightened mind doesn't like is to hear the word no. So when you have your friends or family invite you to something or ask you for money and you say, no, you can't borrow money, this can produce painful feelings within their own mind because they have cravings, and now they're associating that with you and they push you aside, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or other challenges like this. So I'm going to teach you how to say no without saying no. And we'll probably actually be done at lunchtime tomorrow. And oftentimes what people like to do is go out and have a group lunch somewhere. I can recommend a place if you guys would like to all go out and socialize and have a good time together. You guys can decide that tomorrow, but we're usually done by lunchtime tomorrow because we just have these meditation and then these two topics. Okay, so enjoy your evening, and perhaps I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, Sawadee Krap. Sawadee Krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.